as always, the lines are presented by our fabulous partners at BetMGM. Penn State, the 6th seed, 1.5-point dog to the 7th seed. Notre Dame, fighting Irish. Over-under in this game, 46.5. These teams have not met since 2007, when a young, fresh-faced, spiky-haired Jimmy Clausen walked out of the limo and joined those fighting Irish, and Penn State won that game 31-10. So sorry, they're 9-1 all time. I think it will be very similar to the Georgia matchup in that it's going to be decided on the line of scrimmage. And, people want to talk about, turnovers and red zone decide every game. The other thing you hear is whoever can run the ball better is going to win this ball game. And I think this one really fits that. The difference to me in this ball game is Katron Allen and Nick Singleton are healthy. Notre Dame's defensive front, not healthy. Still a lot of issues there, missing their star defensive tackle. And Jeremiah Love from Notre Dame, TBD, didn't finish the game, was put a brace on and was still kind of messing around on the sidelines. Didn't like what I saw from him. We'll see what he can give them. But Notre Dame did a nice job of holding Georgia to 85 rush yards and Indiana to 73 rush yards. This will be a new challenge for them. Chris, what's your feel for Notre Dame's front against this Penn State line?
What jumped out to me most about that Sugar Bowl and has stuck with me is just how much Notre Dame's defensive line was the difference in that game. They had, I think, 4 sacks and 8 or 9 TFLs. They were constantly setting Georgia behind the chains with a backup quarterback and a team that couldn't really pass the ball. And that's what they have to do here. It's been the same thing I've said about Penn State every single time. They stay ahead of the chains really well because they have those really good running backs. And we'll see, Andy Kotelnicki, if they just run the ball, the offensive coordinator, if Penn State just runs the ball more against Boise State, maybe that game isn't as close as it was in the first quarter. But, I think Notre Dame, even without Riley Mills, their sack leader, so impressive on that front. And what kind of push do they get? And not only in the running game between Katron Allen and Singleton, but Drew Allar, who has scrambled really well in these playoff games so far, does a really good job of wiggling free.
I think these two quarterbacks are two of the sort of more eyebrow-raising guys that people talk about in these, oh man, Riley Leonard, oh man, Drew Allar. And then there's a sect of ball knowers who sort of look at them a little side eye of I don't know about these guys. A lot of experience. I'll say this. I'll say this about Drew Allar though. Our Nick Baumgartner, our NFL draft guy, in his most recent mock draft he just put out this week, has Drew Allar going 10th to the Raiders, I believe. I think he had them trading or something like that. And NFL teams are still watching Drew Allar. So whatever you think of him. That's the thing is yes, I have a lot of questions about the accuracy. The decision making has been better this year. There's not a lot of times where you see him throw a ball where you're just what did you see there? And I think with Drew Allar, the bigger question to me is, okay, we've seen a lot of bad Drew Allar tape, a lot of bad looks from him. Michigan last year, Ohio State last year, Ohio State this year, frankly. And how much of that is, it was a really bad scheme last year. Didn't love what they were doing. And then this year, there's not a lot of targets. Obviously, it's great support in the run game, but it's pretty much Tyler Allen or Tyler Warren or bust. And how much does that hamstring you? The fact that you just don't have great receivers. We'll see. But I will say, I like Penn State in this game, and it's because of that matchup. I think Drew Allar is a better player, certainly a better passer than Riley Leonard, and I think there's only going to be so much that you can do to affect the running game. Dame, when you look at these two guys, I mean, if you had to pick between Leonard and Allar, who's getting your vote as a total quarterback, not necessarily as a passer?
I would go Allar. And I want to back up a little bit because to your point, I've heard the same thing. A lot of eyebrow-raising comments. I've heard people compare Drew Allar to Josh Allen. And I'm just are we sure? Where is this coming from? But again, is that the lack of receiver and the lack of weapons and NFL scouts and executives can still see through that and see the talent? Because remember, Josh Allen played at Wyoming, so it's not like he was playing with a bunch of 5-star guys or a bunch of talented receivers, but I think that Drew Allar has a higher upside. I think that he's a little bit more athletic. I think he runs the ball a little bit better than Riley Leonard. And I think he can stand in the pocket and throw the ball. Like Riley Leonard is a good quarterback. I think he's more effective with his legs than he is with his arms. I think on the flip side, Drew Allar is better with his arm than he is with his legs. So I would go Allar if you had to handcuff me to one of them. But still, I want to see more out of both of them because, again, they both made plays that they need to make in order to win games and to get to the spot that they've been in. But they still, neither have looked really impressive. I mean, Riley Leonard had 90 yards passing against Georgia, which, I mean, he ran the ball phenomenal, but 90 passing yards, that's not going to get you a lot of success, beyond that game or at the next level. So I'm looking forward to seeing which quarterback can make those eyebrow raising comments turn into like, oh, okay, I see it. I see what that executive is talking about. I see what all the hype is about. And I think this is going to be the perfect game to prove it. You got 2 run games that are going to be good going against 2 fronts that are really, really good. One of the quarterbacks is going to have to make plays. I think that, to your point, that's what the game is going to come down to. Which quarterback is going to make the best plays, the most off-schedule plays when they have to be made in order to win the game.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think it does matter that, you look at Notre Dame, they don't have, the Michael Mayer, that they've had in the past. And I think that could be a big impact. I mean, this is, if you like receivers, look away from the Orange Bowl because this ain't going to be the show for you.
Let me ask, because I was thinking about this on my drive home. Could this be the most unexciting yet competitive game that we've seen so far? Because I think that the 2 teams match up pretty similarly across the front. Quarterback, you're pretty evenly matched. Running back, I would give a slight edge to Penn State, but obviously Notre Dame has a great run game too. Both teams have great defenses. Both teams can get after the quarterback with their pass rush. But at the same time, both of these teams are just so unexciting. Like we've talked about it all year with Penn State, how it looks like they're running in quicksand. And the same with Notre Dame. I mean, they've won. They've been impressive at times, but even though they've gotten to the point that they are, I will always go back to the fact of look at who they played leading up to that. And with what they've done in the quarterback, I still haven't seen that much from Riley Leonard. So I just think this is going to be a very competitive but eye-burning matchup.
Yeah, I will say a lot of the tools I think separate you. And I think that to me, Allar can do some things that Leonard can. And Leonard can do some things with his feet maybe that Allar can't, but I don't think that's going to decide the game. Chris, where were you at on this?
Going back to this running game, so I was at that Penn State SMU game, and SMU, technically speaking, is 4th in the country in rushing yards per carry allowed. Yes, the schedule plays a role in that. Notre Dame is 25th. So SMU's a pretty stout run front. And Penn State ultimately ran for 189 yards and 4.7 yards per carry, including sacks in there. Singleton and Allen both had 6.4 yards per carry, and they really wore SMU down as that game went on. It was in the second half when you started to see those long runs start to break off. Those 5-yard runs became a 10-yard, became a 15. And the same thing happening against Boise State when it's the long Singleton run, I think it was, that put them away 58 yards. And so can they wear Notre Dame down throughout the game? Georgia couldn't, but you've got 2 healthy running backs because they switch them up all the time. Both of them are really fresh. And so I will be curious when we get to that second half, are those Penn State runs, instead of going for 3 or 4 yards, or they're going for 5 or 6 or 6 or 7, and it starts to add up? Because that's what Penn State has historically done, as long as they stick to the running game when it's working.
Well, I would agree to your point, and even throw Tyler Warren in there, because even if you throw him a short 2 or 3 yard route, something in the flat, he's going to bang through 2 or 3 defenders, and that's almost like he's almost like another running back that just gives body blows over the course of the game. First quarter, second quarter, every time he touches the ball, the defense is going to feel the impact of it. So I would just throw him as another guy and give that advantage to Penn State as well, as just the team that can wear down the quickest or the most efficiently throughout the course of the game.
Yeah, Notre Dame's secondary has allowed 94 passing plays of 10-plus yards this season. That's 24th nationally. Among the teams left in the field, only Texas and Ohio State are better there. I think they're going to have some success here in trying to slow down Notre Dame on the other side of the ball. But the question is, what that looks like against Tyler Warren, because if any receiver in this game has a big catch that's not Tyler Warren, I will be surprised. It's going to be tough to get open against these guys.
Remember there was that period in the Fiesta Bowl where Penn State was chucking it deep like every other play, and they were just constantly starting to go at some of those corners, and it wasn't really working. Like, the accuracy wasn't totally there. Boise State was doing enough. They had the single coverage because they had to blitz every time because that was the only way they were getting pressure. So I'm curious.
Well, let me get me for 1 second on that. I think the issue with that was that you don't have the receivers that are going to go get the 50 feet ball. Because if you're throwing it downfield, you don't even really need the accuracy. You need a guy to go make a play for you, and they don't have those guys. You can't make those guys again. If you can't make those plays against Boise, you're not making them against Notre Dame in the secondary.
Right. Notre Dame has a much better secondary. They are much better at tackling. Boise State was among the worst tackling teams in the country. And Notre Dame presumably won't need to send 6 or 7 guys to get pressure on you. You know, they're able to get pressure without that. I'm curious if Notre Dame plays some more zone, just given all the eye candy and shifting and everything that Penn State likes to do. Does Notre Dame try to play more zone or not, and kind of bracket Warren and try stuff like that? Because if I'm them, I'm like, anybody but Tyler Warren has to beat me.
Chris, what's your feel for the other side here? That this Penn State front, we'll see about Abdul Carter. You know, it doesn't. I would be shocked, you know, if he plays, if he's anything close to his normal self. But what's your feel for that matchup?
Starting with the Notre Dame running game, I mean, the bad news is that photos from practice showed Jeremiah Love in a knee brace. He kind of re-aggravated things against Georgia, so that doesn't seem to be in a good spot to go. And I mean, Notre Dame is like first or second nationally in yards per carry. They are a run-first team. And if I'm Penn State's defense, I'm kind of doing the same thing you did against Boise State, which is everybody just focus in on Ashton Genty, make somebody else beat you. And in this case, it's focus in on Riley Leonard, the runner, and make somebody else beat you. Because Riley Leonard having beat you through the air, try to have these running backs beat you on the ground. That is where I would start. Like, it starts with Riley Leonard and his running ability and what it does to everything else in this offense, and just focus on that. Because Jeremiah Love ain't going to be 100%. Price, like, looked okay. Like, he bounced to the outside a couple times and had the speed edge on Georgia. So, like, maybe that's there, but that's where losing Abdul Carter is such a big deal too, assuming he doesn't play.
Damien, when you it feels like, especially if you don't have Jeremiah Love, you know, we saw Notre Dame lean on that. They've done it a lot during the season. You saw them do it a lot in the second half against Georgia. If it's 3rd and 2, guess what? Here comes 220 pounds of Riley Leonard, like, every time.
Yep.
When you've interacted with defensive guys, like, is there a part of them that's going to like that challenge if you're Penn State, of, like, knowing in short yardage situations, you know, it's not the same thing as the tush push, but, like, you know what's coming. Like, it's just like, come stop it. How is a defense going to react to that when it is a matter of, like, you know, it's almost like the Stockton Malone pick and roll where, like, yeah, you know it's coming, but, like, it's hard to stop. Come get it.
Yeah, well, when you're talking about a game of inches, literally, I mean, defenders, they love it. I remember when I was in Buffalo, there was a guy named Jordan Phillips. He's still with the Bills, big 97.
OU guy.
Oh yeah. Every time it was 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, whether it was at practice, whether it was in the game, all you heard was bow up. And he'd be talking to Ed Oliver. Hey Ed, bow up, so and so, bow up. Then he'd look at me and be like, Dame, they bowing up, they coming. And I'm just like, all right, bro, like, chill. But that's that mindset that guys like that have. So whether it's like 1st and goal from the 1 or 2, or it's 3rd and short, 3rd and inches, like, that is an ultimate make or break. And it's that way for both sides of the ball, because whenever you get in the huddle as an offensive player, and obviously I played running back and I know I'm going to get the ball, like, I'm looking at all the guys up front. I'm just like, yo, we need 6 inches. We need a yard. Like, that's it. And, like, everything that we did all summer long, all off season long, if we can't gain 1 yard, then shit on us. Like, that's our fault. We just wasted all of our time, all of our opportunity. Same thing goes for guys on defense. So it's like that. I'm sure that's why they call it a game of inches, because when you get in that small window, that small opportunity, whether it's crossing the goal line, crossing the first down marker, it, like, lights a fire in everybody. The quarterback sometimes jumps in there. He's headbutting guys like, yo, we just need 1 yard. We just need to get our guy in. We need to get him a first down. Same thing on the defensive side of the ball. You got 8, 9 guys just keying on the quarterback, the running back, whoever they think's getting the ball. And it's just like, that's just the most gladiator form of football right there. 3rd and short, 3rd and inches, 1st and goal from the 2-yard line. Like, that's where you're going to get everybody everybody's best effort, everybody's most juice. That's when everybody's piss is going to be the most hot, quite
or,
frankly.
Or you just do the hard count and draw them offside. That works too.
Yeah.
We are going to offer our quick picks for the Orange Bowl. We've been talking about this matchup, Penn State, Notre Dame. I think it's going to be physical. I think that 46.5 number is about right. I'm going to take Penn State 24, Notre Dame 21. I think Notre Dame probably the better team overall, but in this matchup, I think one team's got a quarterback that's a little bit better, that gives you a little bit more balance, and can still run it a little bit. And obviously not as much as Riley Leonard. I think that's the difference in this one. I think these two teams are very similar in a lot of different ways, and I think they're going to be really physical on the line of scrimmage. But as we saw with the Notre Dame-Georgia game, if you've got a playmaker at quarterback, Notre Dame had one, Georgia didn't, and I think Notre Dame has kind of one, but I think the one at Penn State in Drew Allar is better. That wins them this game. Chris, who you got in this one?
I'm going with the Notre Dame fighting Irish. They're just like, when you look at these two teams, Notre Dame is playing at its highest level through both of these playoff games. Indiana, Georgia. Even if the scores weren't pretty, they are maximizing what they can do.
Yes.
Penn State, they've won their first two games. They've covered it in both games, but they haven't played all that great, especially offensively. It has been really stuttering here and there against teams that they were much more talented than. And I've always said, James Franklin will win you the games when he has the more talented team. That's what's happened through the first two games. I don't necessarily think that's the case in this game. I think Notre Dame's defense forces negative plays, puts Drew Allar in a tough spot, and I think Riley Leonard's able to do just enough on the ground with Abdul Carter not playing is my guess. And Notre Dame wins an ugly one. I think Notre Dame wins, low scoring, taking the under as well.
I gotta say, Chris,
under 46.5.
I think you're low-key making the case for Penn State, who did win big against SMU despite all the turnovers, and then they were able to kind of tuck themselves into a shell. Super weird game plan against Boise. I don't know what they were doing, but they had a weird game plan and still won anyway. I think if you have a maximized Penn State, I think you accidentally made a case for the Nittany Lions in this one.
I don't think Penn State's getting 3 interceptions in this game, which they've gotten in each of the first two playoff games too. Yeah. I don't think those mistakes are going to happen.
I think you're right. Dame, what do you got on this one?
This was tough because everything that both of you guys said was spot on. Ubben, I am going to have to agree with you, though. I'm going Penn State. I would say maybe by 3 or less. And what you said about Drew Allar, I would say about the run game. Like, we don't know the availability of Jeremiah Love yet. And we know that if he does play with a knee brace on in practice, I can tell you he's not going to be at 100%. Yes, you can inject Riley Leonard in there, and he does run the ball really, really well. But I would take 2 running backs that are having a hell of a postseason. I mean, they combined for, 8 yards a carry against Boise State. Now, again, I know it was Boise State. I know that. I understand it was not the same level
Still
of
a good
competition.
team. That's a lot of yards.
It's still a good team. It's still a good team and a team that practices against the best running back in the country every single day. So I think those 2 backs, I think they're going to find a way to get it done. And I think we can all agree when Penn State committed to the run, regardless of the fact they were playing Boise State, they look pretty damn good. And so I think that they just lean on that. You sprinkle in a little bit of Tyler Warren. Like we've talked about, Drew Allar is good at not turning the ball over. So if all of those things come into fruition, which I think they will, I like Penn State.